You have unread texts from Golf Buds. Would you like me to read them?
Yes.
Okay. Johnny says, what are the nicotine pouches you had on the course? Walker says, 8 milligram on nicotine pouches. Billy says, I love the mint one.
I like that one.
Walker says, me too. By the way, you both stink at golf. LOLOL.
Come on. Carry on nicotine pouches. Shop now at onnicotine.com/group text. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.
She is sure, she is sure, she is strong, she is strong, she is true, she is true. She is brave, she is brave, she is bold, she is bold. She is you, she is you, she is you, she is you. She is sure, she is sure, she is strong, she is strong, she is true, she is true. She is brave, she is brave, she is bold, she is bold. She is you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Word of Mom Radio here on the Word of Mom Media Network. I'm your host, Dori DeCarlo, and you know we are here week after week, show after show, breaking those myths that mompreneurs and businesswomen, especially those of us building our businesses from home, that were just dabbling in between bake sales and getting our nails done, we're not. We are smart, we are savvy, and we are sharing the wisdom of women in business and in life. And I'm really looking forward to today's guest joining us. April Pride is a 3 times founder, podcast host, speaker, and mom with 20 plus years of experience. She founded SetSet, the world's first community platform built for women, providing accessible psychedelic education and integration with medical provider-created resources. April has spoken to tens of thousands of women globally on topics including business, psychedelics, and the future of wellness. She is also included in the inaugural High Times Female 50 list, and in 2021 was awarded Most Creative Cannabis Entrepreneur in the U.S. I'm thrilled to be sharing you. Congratulations on that honor, because we have tried very hard here on Word of Mom Radio to bring people into the understanding of what cannabis can do, and now the psychedelics and microdosing, and how this really helps, especially in women's health. So with all that being said, April, welcome to Word of Mom Radio.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm thrilled to have you, and I love sharing fellow podcasters. I would love for you to take us on your journey, the businesses that you have founded and everything that has led you to SetSet.
Yeah. So in the introduction, you had said that I'm a 3-time founder. I've founded like at least a dozen businesses, but I've exited 3 of them.
Wow.
So so it's been quite a journey. And I think that for the purposes of your show, what your listeners will find the most interesting is what came about in my career 10 years ago when I started working in cannabis. Up until that point, I went to architecture school. I went to Parsons School of Design, and I was a founder because all the moms, I had a single working mom, and all the moms that got to hang out at the country club all day were interior designers, and they got to pick their kids up at school. I was like, oh, I think that's what I want to be when I grow up. So that's what I was. And I found myself between projects, and I launched a product, and I loved that process. And so fast forward a few years later, and one of my clients from one of my businesses mentioned that she had started working as an executive assistant for the CEO of a large holding company here in Seattle called Privateer that focused on cannabis brands. For instance, they owned, or they're the majority owner of Leafly, of Tilray up in Canada, which is a licensed producer in Canada. They have the 30-year licensing agreement with the Marley family for Marley Natural. So I was really curious to hear what she was learning. And she said, well, I see all the decks, I see all the deals, I read all of his emails, and no one's creating anything that really is focused on design or women. I was like, oh. Actually, she did mention women, but we were really, at that time, we were focused on the design part of things, she and I, in our conversation. So I took her out to dinner. I knew the guy that owned the restaurant, and so did she. And he asked us what we were talking about. And she said, I'm trying to convince her to launch a line of luxury cannabis accessories. And he said, if you do that, I'll give you your seed money. I'm like, oh, okay. So that never happens. I'm sure listeners know that that never happens. So that happened to me one time. It was amazing. And, I took from there, I just put my, I know how to design products hat on and soft launched the end of 2015. And then January launched. But within 6 weeks, my husband at the time came home and he said, I get your emails. I think you're talking to me, but really you're talking to women, April. I'm like, but half of our customers are men. And there was not this like, you need to choose a side. I don't know. Again, this was early 2016, January. So we're a year before the Women's March, right? And I was like, but I'm learning this plant interacts with the woman's body in a way that I don't have any research around. No one's got any of this research, but I'm talking to women all day and they're telling me how they're using it. And I believe them. And so there's something here with hormones. So we pivoted. We really just started focusing on talking to women. And then I realized what we have is not the name of the brand was Vanderpop, and it was stylish stash good to smoke, store, and share weed. But really what we were doing was teaching people what they needed to know about the plant itself, right? So from a commercialization standpoint, I don't know, I didn't really have much of a business plan there, right? Like how do you earn revenue on education? There are a lot more options today than there were 10 years ago with courses and the rest of it. So fast forward 1 year, I'd sold my company into the Canadian market, and within 3 years, I'd sold to the largest cannabis company in the world. And so that really started my career, not just as the entrepreneur part of things, the designer part of things, the branding person part of things. That all existed, but what didn't exist and what is, I think, front and center now is the advocacy part of this, because I had never worked at a corporation before I sold my company to the largest cannabis company in the world. I had no idea what happened to consumer protection once your product and your messaging is in the hands of an entity that is really beholden to shareholders every 3 months, right? So that insight is what informed 3.5 years ago after I sold my company. In 2019, I started a podcast about cannabis. And then 3.5 years ago, after I had been at that podcast for a couple of years, I really wanted to start focusing on psychedelics because I saw that influencers who were in the cannabis space were starting to talk about psilocybin mushrooms. And again, with the consumer protection hat on, the harm reduction hat on, I understand the critical place that we are in before a substance that's been a Schedule I controlled substance becomes either decriminalized, legalized, rescheduled. Who knows where things are going to go with cannabis, psilocybin, all the rest of it. There's just this opportunity for so much to go wrong. You're reading headlines that say this will help your depression, but then you go on a Reddit feed to figure out how to do it. And those are not medical experts that are teaching you. You're going to websites where you don't know if they're going to take your money and actually ship you the mushrooms. It is the Wild West. And so I think my goal when I came in 3.5 years ago, started a podcast, which was called The High Guide. My podcast now is called SetSet Show. It was really like, okay, we know that 3 out of 4 people that are doing psychedelics are doing it outside of a clinical environment. They're not working with a professional. They're doing this at home with their friends, with their loved ones, with their family. So if we can give them harm reduction advice to make sure that when they go about doing this thing, and granted, 4 years ago, there were less than 500,000 people that lived in decriminalized municipalities. That means that they live in a city where city council has passed an ordinance that says that anything related to the persecution of possessing a controlled substance, it's the lowest police enforcement. They just don't care. If it's not enough for distribution, if you're not trying to make money off of it, like live and let live, right? So we had 500,000 people that lived in places where that was the attitude of law enforcement. 4 years later, it was over 16 million people. So this is happening so quickly, and people aren't really paying attention because it's happening in these really small communities, right? It's at the city level, it's at the county level. We now have 2 states that have decriminalized various substances. I live in Seattle, and psilocybin is decriminalized here. What my aim has always been is to provide correct information. The difference between doing it in cannabis and doing it in psychedelics is and I knew this when I made the decision to start working in psychedelics because it was a pain point in cannabis. We didn't have any medical research. I had 3 doctors who were all related, a mom and 2 daughters, that worked with the endocannabinoid system and could help people start to make sense of how cannabis could interact with their body. When it comes to psychedelics, we have so much more research, right? And we have so many more clinicians that are willing to raise their hand and be a part of the conversation. That's also fascinating. And I think that says a lot around the stigma of people who consume cannabis versus people who use psychedelics. And as a professional who works in both places, I am disappointed that cannabis continues to be looked down on as a tool that not only women, but so many people are using to address pain of all kinds. There is no bad drug, and I just really want to be very clear about that. So with psychedelics, I partnered with a licensed therapist. I could do that. We worked together to create this 12-week microdosing protocol called Micropsyched with 10 women, so we could figure out the curriculum, what was connecting with them. We ran a pilot over 3 months. And then we put that curriculum out. And what I really have always wanted to do, aside from putting out evidence-based, correct information for people to use, is make it accessible. It's so expensive. If you want to microdose with a group, it's like $600. And so we have a do-it-yourself protocol written by a licensed therapist who has worked on the intake and integration side of things with her clients. It's $97. And once you own it, it's evergreen. So yeah, I'm trying to do a lot of things, but really I'm just trying to acknowledge what's actually happening, which is people are using this stuff. And sometimes it goes wrong. And for women, you have a challenging experience in the larger population. 1 out of 5 experiences with psychedelics is going to be challenging. With women, the chances of that are much higher because of the way our hormones interact with these substances. There are specific times a month. The luteal phase of your cycle is the prime time of the month to work with mostly higher doses of psychedelics because your hormones are optimized at that time. They're on your side. When you start to have lower estrogen, whether it's in your monthly cycle or your lifetime cycle, that means that your tolerance is higher, like a guy's. When your estrogen level is higher, it means that you're going to be more sensitive to any substance that you put in your body, and you are more likely to have a reaction to this medicine that is going to be more extreme. And women just don't know that. But once you start talking about it with women, they're like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. I remember when I took mushrooms and I shot yeah, it's all there. But yeah, we just need a lot more conversation around it. We also still need more research.
I think back to getting my period, and I actually had 2D&C because I had polyps in my uterus. I would get horrendous cramps, and my doctor tried everything, every pain medication. And he said to me, have you ever found anything that takes away your cramps? And I said, yeah, smoking a joint. He goes, well, then my medical opinion is get a half ounce and stay stoned. And this was in the 70s. And I remember my doctor saying, if we could only get the medical industry to understand the medicinal benefits of cannabis.
Yeah.
He said, but we're fighting an uphill battle because let's face it, pharmaceutical companies fund medical schools. If they found out parsley cured cancer tomorrow, there'd be a pill in a month. Instead of telling people, grow parsley, eat a lot of it, but it's true. And it's amazing to me. And again, and I said it in the beginning, how we have tried with Word of Mom to make people understand, especially CBD, your body produces this. CBD, the CBG. So it's triggering what your body already has. It's like taking melatonin.
Mm.
It's triggering what's already in your body. And people really get hung up on the other side of things and don't understand the medicinal benefits behind it. How do we
Right.
break those walls down, April?
Well, it's education. I mean, education first, but it's not just education at the consumer level, right? I was at I co-sponsored a fundraiser here in Washington for the guy that ended up getting elected as our next governor, right? And he's going to be very, very critical in legislation that we want to get passed. And someone that, so what do you know about psilocybin? He didn't know anything. He's really nice about it. He's really, really curious, but he doesn't know anything, right? And so we're asking people who are the decision makers to become experts at a very complicated topic. But if we don't educate them, and sometimes unfortunately that education comes from a personal experience where someone they loved really, really benefited or could have benefited, and they saw that or retrospectively. So I feel like I can't stand on a high enough soapbox or get a bullhorn that's loud enough, right, to reach the people who really have the power to move the needle. And right now we have a legislature, whether it's at the state level or the federal level, that's just out of touch, frankly. And so I have such an unbelievable amount of gratitude to vets, because that's who these decision makers listen to. Right? They have sacrificed so much for all of us, and they're coming home and they're not in great shape. And they're saying, hey, listen, the VA is making me addicted. They are giving me things that have destroyed my marriage, my relationship with my kids. I can't work, whatever the case may be. But I can't do the thing that is actually giving me life. So we've got this really large group of people in the US that are willing to be very honest about the illegal behavior that they're engaging in to manage their mental and physical health. And if without them, we would not be having this conversation. We would not have 16 million people that live in decriminalized municipalities. There's just no way. That group of people first. And the second group of people are people that are suffering from substance use disorder of all kinds, who have, ironically, found relief with substances that are scheduled.
You know what? On that note, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to say thank you to our sponsors, and we'll be back here in just a moment on Word of Mom Radio. She is brave. She is bold. She is you. And we want to tell your story. Are you ready to share your journey with us on Word of Mom Radio? Go to wordofmomradio.com and register as a guest. We want to tell your story because when you win, we all win.
In 2017, Unsilenced Voices was formed to help survivors of domestic abuse and gender-based violence worldwide. The organization currently serves Sierra Leone, Rwanda, Ghana, and the USA. In 2022, Unsilenced Voices gifted over $33,000 to survivors in the USA. And in Sierra Leone, there are over 26 young girls who have been rescued from sex trafficking and domestic abuse, and now going through vocational training school in order to better their lives. We need your help. Donations are critical in order for us to continue our work. We also need volunteers to help with research and development. Please visit unsilencedvoices.org for more information.
We're back here on Word of Mom Radio. We're talking with April Pride, who is the founder of SetSet, the first community platform built for women, providing access and accessible education to psychedelic integration with your medical provider. It is so important what you were talking about with the vets. I actually saw a commercial and I couldn't believe it. A veteran talking about microdosing and how it has helped with his depression, his pain management. I was blown away, completely blown away that the VA has a commercial about this. I couldn't believe it. It was about a week or two after we had aired the first episode we've ever done about microdosing and how it helps with depression and all of these different things that they are finding these uses for. And it's not about huge quantities. It is microdosing. It is learning, like you were saying, with women hormonally, when the time of the month is. I would love for you to talk to us about the current studies and research talking about how psychedelics support menopause.
When it comes to women's health, I feel like the two largest topics are menopause. Maybe that's because I'm perimenopausal, and also microdosing or psychedelics, right, for mental health. And so the way I am so grateful to Jennifer Chesick, who I interviewed on my podcast. She's the author of the Psilocybin Handbook for Women, and she's working on another book that might be about menopause. And she was sharing with me what she's learned from clinicians and experts that she's spoken with in terms of how women are using psilocybin specifically for menopause. And okay, the top three are: one, psilocybin is a serotonin agonist. So as we lose estrogen, we lose serotonin. So we start reaching for alcohol, we start reaching for weed, we start reaching for other things that can help to replace the serotonin that's lost. We've tried to find we're not doing anything wrong in middle age. It's biological that we're like, I need the thing to make me happy. Why? I didn't need the thing 5 years ago. And so we're seeing alarming rates of women with alcohol use disorder specifically because that's the easiest thing for them to get their hands on. And then benzos, because women are prescribed Xanax and the rest of it at rates that are much higher than men, right? So that is one of the things that's happening when we microdose is we are helping to feed the serotonin receptors. And so we don't have the need to find other things that can replace that happiness, right? That's slowly being taken from us. And then the other big thing, which tracks for me when she was sharing it, is leading up to perimenopause. If you look at your monthly cycle, women that have endometriosis, 75% of them have also had sexual trauma or abuse brought onto them. And so they think that that condition is a physical manifestation of the trauma that was induced upon them, right? And so if you continue until perimenopause and menopause to have this trauma that has gone unaddressed, and you have had painful, terrible periods your whole life because of endometriosis, your experience in menopause and leading up to menopause will be equally as difficult. What they're finding is that women that choose to take a high dose psilocybin experience while they're in perimenopause or at some point in their 40s, and they start to address this underlying trauma, that it changes the trajectory of their menopausal or perimenopausal experience, because the trauma is, it's not just something that's being buried. It's coming to the light. You are starting to integrate how you feel or feel about something that happened in the past and are looking to the future for things to be different. So there is a book that I'm sure you've talked about on this podcast called The Body Keeps the Score by Vander Kolk. And he does a very, very good job. Like, the physical manifestations of our pain are a lot of times the result of our emotional trauma of all kinds, right? And physical trauma. So that microdosing to help with the estrogen loss, macrodosing to help with resolving some trauma. And then the third part of this is the amount of anxiety that comes along during perimenopause. Again, also because of our changing hormones, I guess I should have said microdosing to help us not reach for the bottle. But this third thing, the anxiety, microdosing to not rely on benzos or other ways to deal with anxiety. It just helps to even out it's our emotional regulation, the unpredictability that we sort of expect month to month, like, oh yeah, I guess I'm getting my period. This is what's going on. But when you get into perimenopause, it's really hard to know what's going on because you don't get your period at the same time all the time, right? So it brings in this level of consistency that's not only for you, but also the people around you that you love, right? One of the hardest things that I can bring into my world is inconsistency, because the people around me are like, whoa, what just happened? Where's the other April? Like, right? And so, yeah, those are just three of the ways that people are using psilocybin in middle age, which I hate that word, but I guess, do I want to be 170 years old? So I don't want to wait till I'm 85 for middle age. So, yeah. And it all really, really tracks with everything I've learned in the last decade. Now, how you do it is totally up to you, right? Like, there are no rules for microdosing. There are certainly protocols that people have put out. But one of the things that Kendra and I worked on was making sure that you understand it's personal to you. And one of the biggest lessons for women is Indigenous cultures. They ask women to work with microdose substances for 3 months so that they're working with it through 3 of their cycles. So they understand how it ebbs and flows during the month so that you can adjust accordingly. And that has everything to do with like your sensitivity to it, right? Again, so you can be consistent and show up to your day in a way that feels good to you and the people around you.
I find this so fascinating.
Yeah.
Are there any safety regulations out there in this industry?
What do you mean by safety? You mean safety around the product, safety around the guidance? Yeah, no. I mean, no. It's again Wild West. So there is an organization called PsiloSafe, which is a underground industry-led elective organization that you, as like a manufacturer of a psilocybin product, can choose to join, and then you put their like Good Housekeeping seal of approval. You put that on your packaging, and you also adopt their language and graphics for the potency of the product that's inside. So there's some consistency for the consumer. Now, it's really, really hard to get companies to adopt that, but that is the answer, right? From a product standpoint. Do not buy anything online unless you have a friend who bought it from them, got their package delivered, and tried the product, and everything's cool, right? So like part of my job, right, is to buy stuff from shady places, and I can tell you, you're just waiting for a shakedown. So I'm like, okay, I go on Instagram and I find this website, or no, yeah, I go on Instagram, then I go to their website, then I contact them on Telegram like they told me to. And then I give them $100 for 5 chocolate bars. And then within 2 weeks, I guess, I got a message that said that my package was, had been confiscated. And if I didn't send $700, they were going to turn it over to the DEA. So that's the type of stuff that you can fall trap to. And if you're not like savvy and know that this is, this was you're never going to get your chocolate bars, but don't go all in on the 700 because you think you're going to get in trouble. Yeah, you just sort of walk away from the $100. But this industry is rife with that, because what other choices do you have? And so I was actually just talking, I did start a psilocybin brand that I don't distribute, but I created everything around it so that it could have the elements of what a consumer really is looking for when they're making this choice. And what was I gonna? Yeah, so I did start it, but the guy that's distributing it and taking all the risk, he's not doing it anymore. And the reason I started it was because people were asking me as a podcast host on psychedelics, where do I get mushrooms? And I told you the one story. There are more of them. And I just didn't have anywhere to send people. And so I found, I think, the best legacy manufacturer of products in Seattle and built a brand for her. So they would have, I would have somewhere to send people that felt like totally legit. I knew the product was good, but like it needed to be packaged and all of that. So the product is one hurdle. And then the second hurdle is the fact that you are paying somebody to sit with you and to guide you. Guide is a loose word, but one that we all can appreciate what that means. You're a facilitator. And there's all levels of experience. I mean, people want me to guide them. I have never been trained as a facilitator. I just talk to experts all day. That doesn't make me one, nor does that make me want to be one. I understand the responsibility that comes with holding space for somebody when they're in an altered state. And that is, you got to really be called to that. And so one of the things that we're not talking about enough is the sexual abuse that's rampant in this industry, because you get a woman or a man that's in an altered state and can't make decisions for themselves. And that abuse of power happens. It happens. So if you're working with somebody, there should always be two people there. It's like going into your OBGYN's room, the nurse needs to be there too. And so if you're working with somebody, it's more expensive and it's all that, but it is kind of the way to go. So again, what I'm trying to do is train people so they can work with their friends and do this together, and they don't have to spend a lot of money, right? So there are, and then on top of that, I think depending on where you live, right, you're going to have hesitation if something's going wrong, calling 911, right? Because you don't want to get in trouble for it. So having someone who's sober, who can say, you're going to be okay, let's go for a walk safely, all of that before bringing the cops in. It just like, once you call the cops and you've got these cops showing up at your house, your trip is now officially challenging. So you have to engage with law enforcement. Yeah. So I think that the question around safety is very, very complicated.
Wow. There's so much more we need to talk about. I can't believe that this time is over. April, please let everyone know how they may reach out to you, and what would you like to leave our listeners with?
Yeah. Thank you for that. So you can find me. I'm on LinkedIn at April Pride, Pride. SetSet is at GetSetSet.com. And on Instagram, you can also find us at SetSet. You can find me at April Pride. And I would say, if you're listening to this and you're curious and you start to, figure things out on your own, maybe it's not psilocybin that you're curious about. Maybe it's MDMA, right? You have to test your drugs. If you find some, I can tell you that the person that's testing MDMA for a lot of medicine keepers on the West Coast, 25% have fentanyl in it, but every single one is not pure MDMA. There are other things in there. It's cut with all kinds of stuff, including cocaine, right? So you may think you're getting it from a trusted source, but yeah, I was interviewed by an 11th grader last week, actually. And she was like, what would you tell 11th graders? I'm like, test your drugs, right? I'm not going to be your mom and tell you don't do it, because we know you got what you guys are up to, but you need to test your drugs. And I tell that to adults too. And they laugh at me. Oh, I've got my guy. I've had the same guy forever. I'm like, if you just talked to the people that I talked to weekly, you would understand how important it is to not trust anybody when it comes to these things right now, because it's not their fault. We have a poisoned drug supply. So that is what I would stress to your listeners, to know that you're getting in bed with people who really don't have your best interest in mind. Yeah.
Knowing the efficacy of where you get things is very important.
It's true.
It really, truly is. April, I thank you so much for coming on the show. I really do, because I think that this is a topic that is coming up more and more and more, and people need to be aware of what is going on. So all of April's links are going to be live on Word of Mom Radio. Please, if you are curious, reach out, take a listen to the podcast, find out the information that will work for you.
Yes, you can find our podcast on YouTube at SetSet Show and anywhere you stream audio. Yeah,
absolutely. Like I said, all the links will be there. So I do encourage you to reach out. And again, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time to come. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for the
My
platform.
pleasure. And for all of you out there, thanks for being here with us today. We're going to close out with our fabulous theme song from Smith Sisters and the Sunday Drivers. So till next time, this is Dori DeCarlo saying go out and create a marvelous you. Bye for now.
She is sure. She is sure. She is strong. She is strong. She is true. She is true. She is brave. She is brave. She is bold. She is bold. She is you. She is you. She is you. She is you. She is sure. She is sure. She is strong. She is strong. She is true. She is true. She is brave. She is brave. She is bold. She is bold. She is you. She is you. She is you. She is you. Sure of herself, yeah, she takes care of biz. Powerful and strong, yeah, she knows who she is. Has integrity, woman strong and true. You know her by name, see this woman is you. She is sure. She is sure. She is strong. She is strong. She is true. She is true. She is brave. She is brave. She is bold. She is bold. She is you. She is you. She is you. She is you. She is sure. She is sure. She is strong. She is strong. She is true. She is true. She is brave. She is brave. She is bold. She is bold. She is you. She is you. She is you. She is you. Adds value and hope. Has proved to be brave. See, it's never too late. Never time to behave. Reaching for dreams. Doesn't matter the age. Believes in herself. Unleashed from her cage. She is sure. She is sure. She is strong. She is strong. She is true. She is true. She is brave. She is brave. She is bold. She is bold. She is you. She is you. She is you. She is you. She is sure. She is sure.